Okay, guys, you ready for a story?
Uh-huh.
You ready for a potentially triggering story?
Uh-oh.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I come from music originally. I'm, a filmmaker, actor, but I'm also a musician, and I moved to LA when I was 17 years old, was fucking hustling for 10 years trying to make music happen, and then I wrote a song for Britney Spears, and then I was like in the pop music world and like doing sessions with everyone and, like trying to fucking make it happen. So lots of meetings all the time. I would say 90% with men. All the producers, I would say 98% men. I think I worked with one, maybe two female producer that entire time. And one day I got, I can't remember how it happened, but whatever, an A&R, like an executive basically, not an executive, but like a pretty high up A&R at a major record label reached out to me and was like, hey, I'd love to talk to you about your songwriting, because at this point I'd written for Britney and whatever. I was still kind of fresh at the time. And I was like, great. So we set up a meeting. I go in there and I meet with him. And here's where it gets complicated. I was attracted to him.
Oh.
And there was an obvious
flirtation.
There was an obvious magnetism between us. I left, whatever. I was like, oh, okay, I'm attracted to that person. That's weird. But I didn't think much of it. And then he emailed me again and was like, hey, could you actually come back? I want to talk to you about your artist project and not just your songwriting. And then we can go get a drink or whatever and discuss it. Now, for context, at this point, I go out to bars with music industry people all the time, because that is one of the ways that we have meetings.
Right.
It's not always in the office. It's very, very common. At least it was at the time. I haven't been in it as much lately, but my manager and I would go out and meet, people from this label, or, go to a show with these people. So this is not at all unusual. It's down the block from the studio that his office is in. So I was like, okay, cool. We'll meet there and then we'll go discuss. I get in there and I'm not going to go into too much detail because I feel like it could actually be, I don't want to be too, give too much detail. But basically he shut the door and he made a move. And
this is in his office?
This is in his office.
Oh, no.
At night.
Oh, no.
And it was really, really confusing for me, because I was like, I am attracted to this person.
Right.
But I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I'm attracted to this person, but I would want to actually get to know each other. And also, should we even do that? Because this is someone who has so much more power than me, and shouldn't we just keep this professional? But I'm attracted to him, and so my body is responding and I don't really know how to react right now.
Right.
And he, basically what happened in a nutshell is I kept being we should leave, we should go, we should leave, we should go. And he physically blocked the door and prevented me from leaving.
Oh, no.
Repeatedly. And the encounter ended in him experiencing pleasure and me not. And, it was so humiliating afterward. He, took me to the bathroom and then sent me away and kind of made sure nobody saw me, and it was so just disgusting. And yeah. So anyway, it took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that was assault, because I was I was attracted to him though. I was attracted to him though. And I remember telling my friends afterward and being haha, this funny sexual thing happened, and they just looked at me with their faces had gone white. They were that's not that funny, Lola. That sounds like a bad situation. I was like, no, it's fine. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Just because a hamburger tastes really good doesn't mean you can't still choke on it and die. Does that make sense?
Oh wow, what a great analogy.
Thank you. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And then the fucked up part too, which is the part that I usually leave out of the story because people don't understand why this happens. And I actually got into an argument with a guy I was seeing, not my current boyfriend, because my current boyfriend fucking rules, but about this particular thing, which is that this same A&R texted me to hang out again, and I did it.
Right.
And the reason that I did it, that people really, really struggle with understanding, I think, is if I'm looking at the reason that I did it, I'm I didn't want to believe that was the kind of person that he was. And I didn't want to believe that thing had happened to me because I had already had the sexual assault experiences.
Right.
And so in my mind, I'm like, if I hang out with him again, maybe I will discover that he really likes me for me. And maybe I will find that, like, you know, that thing that felt kind of weird wasn't actually weird. And we're like, you know, this is actually really not like fun. And he was texting me like every single night. So I hung out with him again. Almost the exact same thing happens. And then afterward, he was still texting me every night. I like stopped responding to him.
Yeah.
And then the people that he had set me up in sessions with, there were 2 people, like producers he had set me up with to write, like for their artists or whatever, ghosted me. As soon as I ghosted him, they totally disappeared. Coincidence? I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, it's like, so there are kind of a couple different things at play here. So one, there's this idea that, like, you see someone again after they've harmed you. Why would you do that? Mm-hmm. Why would you do that? But there's so many reasons why, like, so many ways that we justify to ourselves the pain that we've experienced and, like, don't want to believe it and try to push it away. And I think that is something that happens within cultic groups all the time. Like, and that, in fact, like, my mom talks about this. She, with her, you know, with our prophet, she was like, well, there's no way that someone would lie about this. Like, that, no one is that bad of a person. So
Right.
I can't accept that. So instead, it's easier to accept that, like, I mean, I'm way oversimplifying it. There were so many factors at play there. He worked so hard on her, wearing her down. So I don't want to downplay that. But, like, one of the many, many dynamics is that you don't want to believe that people are bad.
Right.
You just don't.
Right.
It's hard. And you don't want to believe that you're a victim.
Mm-hmm.
At least I didn't want to believe that I was a victim. I'm like, no, I am not the kind of person that this stuff happens to anymore. This doesn't happen to me, so therefore this was fun.
Mm-hmm.
I had fun. That was fun.
Right.
You know.
Okay, so there's this picture here in Los Angeles. He recently had sex with a woman, and it was very rough. And she texted him, like, I loved it. It was fucking amazing. I recently gave up drugs and alcohol to, like, get into, like, now I'm into rough sex, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so then they meet up again, and he apparently, like, she's unconscious. He punched her in the vagina, like, gave her a black eye. And
God.
again, I think she texted things like, it was great. And then she sued him.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's just like, yeah, I said I loved rough sex. Yeah, I said I love that, but I didn't want to get punched in the vagina and, like, pass out. But then it just gets it gets confusing.
Well, I mean, that's one of the points that the guy I was arguing with brought up, because he was like, that particular guy is sexually dominant. Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, what if I'm having a consensual experience with the girl, and then she, like, reinterprets that memory later on as assault, when at the time it was actually really consensual. But it's like, okay, if you are actually engaging in the correct kind of rough sex, or the you know, the consensual kind of BDSM or whatever it is, you are having discussions about what you are doing in advance. You are checking in with each other. You are, like, making sure that it's consensual. That is the appropriate way to do BDSM. And we've gotten some DMs from people being like, please don't misrepresent the BDSM community, like, because I've referenced this Dom guy before. They're like, he's not representative of what the community is actually about. And I, thank you for those messages. I think that that's a really important point. Like, if somebody is going to be rough with you, they need to be talking to you about it. And if they're not, they might just be shitty. Like, it might not be the BDSM relationship that you think it is. This is veering a little bit away from the Hollywood stuff, but I also think it's important. I was in a class last year. I took a psych class, group dynamics class, and every week we'd have to write what was going on in our lives. And there was one girl who wrote about how she has, like, a really kinky BDSM relationship with her boyfriend, but he chained her to the bed all night and she couldn't escape, and it was really traumatizing, but it's just BDSM. And I was like, I don't think that that's what you think it is.
Right.
And I actually, she emailed me later for advice, and I did my absolute best I could. I don't know exactly what the right thing to say in that situation is. But yeah, so that's one facet of it. And then the other facet of it is this thing that we've finally begun to have a cultural conversation about, which is like, if you are the person with power in the room and the other person like needs something from you or wants something from you, there is an obvious power imbalance. You cannot.
It's so frustrating. Yeah, I just remember like mid-20s. A lot of my guy friends were actors, and a lot of them were on television shows, and a lot of them would have sex with girls who were over 18 but fans of their shows because they were kind of those kind of shows. And I was just like, these are fans of yours. You're not going to date them. You're going to hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Literally, why?
Yeah. Oh, that one's so tough because it's like, can you just not hook up with anyone who's... Because on the one hand, you should not sleep with people who are just like obviously your fans. But on the other hand, are you never allowed to hook up with someone who's a fan of something you've done? Like, that doesn't make sense either.
I know. It doesn't make sense.
It's just like being mindful of the power that you potentially have. And in that case, it's like, at least they're just an actor. Like, they're not someone in a meeting hiring who has the power to hire them. Actors don't have any fucking power to hire people, you know. I mean, some of them maybe, but yeah. There's one more example I'm going to give. I'm sorry, this is probably very stressful, a very stressful episode. But there's one more example I want to give, which I think about it sometimes. I'm like, that was so weird. There was a guy who worked in nightlife, events, and music, and he was like getting into management, and he was in with this group. I won't name any names, but he was in with this like very cool photographer who was very hip at the time and going to all the cool events and like, you know, whatever, just like the cool kids, the cool kids in the scene. This guy, I was like, kind of, you know, I really wanted to be in with these people. They had a lot of power. They were like kind of star makers at the time. And so he came over to have a meeting with me. And, oh, God, I wish I could say his name because his name is so ironic. If you even knew what his name was.
Is it like Gentle Whisper or something?
Close enough.
That's my favorite ASMR girl. Shout out Gentle Whisper. Okay, go on.
He sat me down and he was like, if we're going to work together, I'm going to need you to trust me.
Antenna. What'd you say?
I was like, okay. Yeah, totally. Trust. You have to trust the people you work with. He was like, okay, I would like to do a trust exercise. I want you to go into your room and change your shirt. And I was like, okay, this is kind of weird, but okay. So I went into the room and I changed my shirt. Obviously he wasn't watching or anything. I came back out. He sat me down. He was like, good. Now I want you to do it again. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Like, this is feeling weird to me. Mind you, at this point, I've already believed in a fucking cult leader.
Right. Yeah. You're like, what's going on? Yeah.
And he was like, okay. Well, if you don't do it, that proves to me that you're not taking this seriously. And I can't work with someone who's like not willing to fully jump in and trust me and take this seriously. And it was so hard for me to say this because I wanted to be in with these people so badly, but it raised enough red flags that I was like, okay, I guess we can't work together.